Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Virtual Coffee Chat series. I am hosting Jasmine Williams from Jasmine Williams Media. She is a content and social media consultant from Toronto, and she's going to tell us much more about herself. So I'm just going to hand the microphone to her, but I'm very happy and excited to have you here, Jasmine, and about this chat. We're going to be basically talking about building a freelancing career as a content and social media consultant. And one of the reasons I'm very excited to talk about this, by the way, as a background information, is this is one of the topics that is very, very interesting to my audience. Some of them are looking for jobs in companies, but there is a majority of them who are trying to build their own consulting business or trying to do freelancing or trying to explore the options. So I think our conversation today is going to be really helpful in that sense.
Cool.
So would you like to introduce yourself to us and just a little bit of background, maybe how you started your career in marketing, the first steps you took, and like how it kind of evolved into what it is today?
I am a content marketing consultant. I run a business called Jasmine Williams Media, and we help creative entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses using strategic storytelling. So that can cover a wide range of activities. It could be blog posts, it could be email marketing, it could be social media, content strategy. But yeah, anything basically in the realm of online content, that's what we do. And yeah, I got into it because I have a background in journalism. That's what I studied in school. And then I graduated at a time where journalism jobs are very hard to find and very competitive. So I started applying for marketing jobs and content marketing jobs. And that's kind of how I sort of fell into content marketing. But I really grew to love it because it kind of combined the creative side of things and also the analytical side of things, which I think naturally I just had an interest in.
That's awesome. So did you find it difficult at all in the very early days, like when you were fresh out of college and when you were, applying for marketing jobs?
Mhm.
Uh, did it ever become like a challenge for you that you didn't have a marketing degree or a business degree?
It wasn't really, because a lot of the jobs that I was applying for were looking for very practical skills. So
Mm.
they're looking for skills like writing, social media. Those are kind of the bulk of it. And I did a couple of internships and also did a couple of like side gigs here and there. So I also even in university, I ran a few clubs, and just even promoting those clubs was kind of marketing training in
True.
a way. So yeah, learning those types of skills, that's what the jobs that I was applying for, that's what they were looking for. So fortunately, yeah, I didn't really run into any issues not having a traditional marketing background, you could say.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that and that you brought that point up because it is a subject that I discuss a lot with within my content and also through emails with my audience. So
Hmm.
there's always this question that comes up: do I need a marketing degree to have a marketing job? And I feel like a lot of people um, think that they can validate their background more if they have a marketing degree. Like if they add a marketing diploma, even if the undergrad degree isn't in marketing, they still um, focus on the education, like the formal marketing education,
Yeah.
because they think that that could potentially become a challenge or a blocker when they want to get a job in marketing.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I actually have a video specifically on like how they don't need a marketing degree per se
Right.
to get a marketing job,
Yeah.
and it's always good to validate that and hear it through other people's experiences. So right now you are running your own business, but in the
Hmm.
very early days, what were your first steps out of college? What were your first jobs in marketing?
Yeah, so my first job, oh, what was the title? I think it was content marketing assistant or something like that. Definitely a very entry level role. And it was basically a mixture of blog writing and community management. So I managed the company's social media channels and then also wrote a lot of content for them. So that was like my first taste of working in content marketing, and I really liked it. And then I kind of bounced around a bit. Like I worked at a startup for a little bit. I actually worked very briefly in traditional media as an editor for an online magazine. Then kind of went back into content marketing. So yeah, every job I went, I kind of picked up different skills. But for me, I've always kind of wanted to be my own boss and do my own thing. So I was just having, I kind of was in these jobs, but also figuring out like, okay, how can I kind of take what I do in these jobs and do it for myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was me as well. So what was what was the point in your career when you actually decided to take that leap of faith and go for it and build your own business and work on your own brand?
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, it was 2 years ago now, or a little before, a little over 2 years. But I was working at a nonprofit as a content marketer. But then I was also freelancing on the side. Like this is something I was doing since university, basically. I'd always pick up a little assignments here and there, like blog posts or
Mhm.
articles, just to kind of keep my feet wet and, make some money on the side. But I never quite figured out how to turn that into a full-time income.
Yeah.
Like there's even one summer where I was laid off and I was like, okay, let me try freelancing. And I did not get anywhere. I was not even really making enough to cover my rent. And I was like, okay, this is not working. I have to go back and get a job. But what changed really was I was sort of lurking in a bunch of online communities. Like I joined a lot of Facebook groups for freelancers and things like that because I was trying to learn. And then I was also started doing some social media management on the side as a freelance gig. I was helping my dad out with his business. And that's when I kind of figured, wait a second, what if I combined the writing with social media? Because I felt, okay, blog posts are sort of hard to build sustainable income, but I could definitely kind of package my social media services into something that's like a monthly ongoing thing. And I'm like, okay, that would be useful as looking for stability.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was like the first little thing that I wanted to try. But then I was in this Facebook group and I saw this post, somebody was asking about rates, and I saw this lady kind of pop in and answer so quickly and so succinctly. And I was like, oh my God, like this person knows what they're talking about. And then I went to their website and I saw that they called themselves a content consultant. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. And I was like, wait, it just sounded like me, like it fit. So I reached out to her, messaged her on Facebook being like, hey, I did the annoying, can I pick your brain type of thing? Because I was like, I checked out your website. You seem to be doing something that I want to try. Fortunately, she was super nice and really generous with her time. We got on a call and I had so many questions for her and she just kept like giving me so much information. I was writing things down furiously. I was writing things down on Post-it notes because I couldn't even find a notebook. And I was like, I have to get this all down. And then from that call, I was like, oh my gosh, now I have a plan. Because I don't know, I think especially with freelancing, it's still a very, like, there's not a lot of young people. I think now, like I'd
Yeah.
say in this age, like kind of post-pandemic era, like I feel like there's a lot more people who are interested in freelancing.
True.
But even as soon as like, yeah, 2 years ago, it wasn't seen as a viable career path. You tell somebody you're
Yeah,
a
I mean,
freelancer.
it's something to most people are actually frightened of.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to make a sustainable income from this? Like, is it really worth taking that risk and going your own path while you can actually go and, have a sustainable income from another company, like work
Yeah.
that 9 to 5 job, insurance and benefits and stuff like that. I mean, those are all very, very attractive. So it's a big decision to make for sure.
100%. Yeah. And so, yeah, it wasn't something that I really considered a viable thing. But then I met this person and she was around the same age. And fortunately now, fast forward, we're friends, which is great. But seeing her do it, I was like, okay, maybe I can do it. Maybe I don't have to wait till I'm like, in my late 30s
Yeah.
and,
Until you
have,
feel like you're the expert of the industry, right?
exactly. It's like, maybe I could just try it now. So yeah, I tested the waters. I set up an Instagram account, just sort of putting feelers out there. I emailed a few people that I'd done some freelance work with in the past and was just like, hey, I'm thinking of going, thinking of going freelance, and I'm available. Let me know if you have any projects that you need support with. And I was fortunate, one of my old colleagues reached out right away, and he's like, yeah, actually, we have a social media management project if you're, down. And yeah, basically it was the thing that, or it was the kind of work where the scope of the project would have meant I would have had to leave my job. Like at first I was thinking of just doing it on the side and sort of
Mm-hmm.
building up my freelance business, I guess, until I felt sustainable. But the size of the project just wouldn't allow for that. So I had to really weigh the pros and cons. I'm like, do I take a pay cut and just, jump into this freelance thing, or do I say no and wait? And it just felt like, well, I have this offer on the table right now. I might as well just like dive in and see what happens. So that was what happened.
I love that you mentioned two things there. So one is that you reached out to your initial, like the first network that you have
Yeah.
for jobs, and to build this network and to let them know that you're doing this.
Yeah.
That's really important, because when you're initially starting, you don't know where to begin. Like, you don't really have an established brand online yet, and people don't
Yeah.
know about you. People don't know if they can trust you, even if you had a beautiful website with
Yeah.
so much content. They don't know if they can trust you. So going for your primary network of people that you already know, and
Hmm.
building your portfolio with that is super smart, which is also going to be a question that I ask um, a little bit later on,
Yeah.
in terms of your tips for someone who wants to go this route. But the
Yeah.
other thing that you mentioned that I really like is that you went out to someone, like you reached out to someone who you were seeing be successful in this field. And
Hmm.
I think that's super important for all fields, by the way, because we don't have to discover something like that some other person has already went through that path. So we can just
Right.
go ahead, get that knowledge, and hopefully copy whatever they have done that has been successful. So
Hmm.
it's really important to take people's lessons and kind of apply it and make it your own. But yeah, we don't have to really reinvent the wheel every single time. If a business model is working, then learn about that and try to apply it for you. So I really like those 2 points.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's this idea, I think, when you're a freelancer starting your own business, that you just have to do everything on your own. And yeah, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's so important
Yeah.
to find your people, whether it's finding a mentor or finding even peers, other people who maybe are at the same level. I think it's important to have both of those types of people around you, like people you can kind of look up to and follow in their footsteps, but also people you can kind of commiserate with, and
Yeah.
being like, are we crazy for doing this? uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Even maybe finding like an accountability buddy, which
yeah,
I heard from someone else's video, but I really like that idea, just like finding a mentor, one, but also like if someone else is doing it with you, then you're kind of like making each other accountable for the new journey that you're on, which is also
100%.
like
Yeah.
really motivating, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the other things that I have on my mind, which is quite important, I feel, is that when you're self-employed, when you're working for your own business,
Hmm.
you might have a team, but it's like your own business, like you're not a part of another company, right? So in those cases, I feel that uh, it is a bit more difficult to uh, grow yourself in terms of new knowledge, new information that you accumulate. And how do you grow your skills and knowledge as a freelancer, as
Yeah.
someone who is on their own, basically, with their job?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, I mean, for me, I realized pretty quickly that I needed help. Like, I realized that I had the skill, like I guess the skills that I needed to do what I wanted to do in terms of like the work, like the client work. But in terms of the business side of things, I didn't have that kind of background. Like, I didn't really know sales, or I knew marketing in the context of being a part of a marketing team, but not really as marketing for myself, which is a totally different ball game. So yeah, I think one of the first things I did is I worked with a business coach. So that was super helpful, just helping me figure out, what my niche was, who my target customer is. Because I think sometimes when people start out as freelancers, they're just like, well, I'll work with anybody. I'm a graphic designer. I'm available to do graphic design. And that's great.
Big mistake.
It is a big mistake.
It
Yeah.
can really overwhelm you and open the way for mistakes, I think.
Yeah, because on one hand, you're probably going to end up working with people you don't really want to work with, or projects you're not really passionate about. But it also makes it harder for people to find you and to attract clients, because they're just going to see, oh, okay, graphic designer, but do they have any kind of specialty?
Yeah, do they know my industry?
Exactly. So that figuring that stuff out from the beginning was super important. And then I've invested in some courses along the way. Like I did a sales course last year to kind of better fine tune my sales processes and skills there. I'm always just sort of like looking and learning, and I'll attend workshops or webinars that I think would be helpful. But yeah, I think too, that is tricky, because when you're not in a company, those sorts of normal levels of markers of success or growth aren't really there. You can't really give yourself a promotion.
Exactly. And also the information, those courses, the sources that you have to, like when you're on your own, that you have to follow, they're kind of given to you when you're in a company. Like if you're part of a marketing team, and if there is like this course that everyone else is taking, or this certification that everyone is completing, then it's kind of a given that you are going to do the same. So that information is just like on your plate. But when you're on your own, you kind of have to figure out where to look for information, what is the right information for you, how can you feed yourself on a regular basis, and also where to find inspiration and motivation too, because that also belongs to you when you're the business owner.
No,
So
absolutely.
do you have some go-to resources for these types of things, or was there like a course or something that you took, like a webinar that you attended, that really was like a major milestone for you, or that you would recommend to others?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, I found a couple of websites that were really helpful and really tailored to me. Like there's this one freelance writer, her name is Kat Bugard, and her website was really helpful for me, because especially as a freelance writer, her tips were really tailored to my industry and what I was looking to achieve. So I feel it's hard to kind of recommend general, I guess, resources, because I think it's important to kind of figure out or find resources that are that make sense for you and the way you operate. But I went to so many events, I guess, in that first year. Like I went to like marketing panels, sales panels, business coaching things. That was sort of my way of educating myself, because I was on a budget, wasn't quite sure where to invest my funds. Like I think if I were to go back and do it differently, I would have tried to find some sort of course that would have taught me all of those things. But in the beginning, it was a lot of Google and a lot of just trying to find local events that were tailored to what I was doing.
Were those also helpful in terms of networking and meeting people, like meeting clients, potential clients, but also people that you could, people from your own industry too? I think those, I personally love events. And I unfortunately didn't take enough advantage of it in the early years of my career. I was just too shy to network. Now I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm so happy to meet new people. I'm always happy to meet people, but I was shy to introduce myself and talk about what I do and why I'm good at it. Like I was very shy in that sense. It's changing, but it really took some time.
Oh, I was absolutely the same way. Like, honestly, the first networking event I went to, I walked inside and I literally was like deer in headlights. I was so overwhelmed. And then this guy walked over to me and he's like, "It's your first time, isn't it?" And I was like, "What? Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I can tell. Like, you look scared." And like, fortunately, he was nice and he was like, "Okay, here's a name tag. Like, I'll just, try to get a glass of water. There's some pizza. Just relax." But yeah, like I was so nervous that it was visible on my face and my body language. And yeah, I think forcing myself to go out and do that more, because I think like when you run a business, you are your sales team, you're the
Exactly, you're
marketing
the sales
team.
team.
So
Yeah,
you,
there's no shying away from that. Like there's no shying away from talking about your services or your business or your
yeah.
strengths. You have to do it.
Yeah. So, and now, like, yeah, 2 years later, it's, I can do interviews like this and it doesn't phase me. But definitely, if I was asked to do this, right at the beginning, I would be cold sweats. It really just
Yeah.
takes practice.
I think it did become easier when it's virtual. What do you think about
Mm.
that? I
I
mean,
think
right
so.
now, networking is like through LinkedIn or Facebook groups or meetup groups, but still all digital. I feel it's easier when you don't really when you're not there in person. It's like, I don't know, you're kind of hiding behind this keyboard and it's just easier to talk about it.
Yeah, I will say it is easier in some ways, because even like those times at events where you see people talking and you try to like edge your way in, that could be
Yeah.
really awkward. But now it's a lot easier to just kind of shoot a message to somebody, and it's like if they don't respond, that's fine. If they do, that's great. But like,
Yeah.
in person, if you're to walk up to somebody and they don't really respond, that's so much more like
Yeah.
stressful.
Stressful for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to ask you, what's your process for finding new clients, finding new business? I mean, so the part of the question initially I was going to ask you, how did you get your first clients?
Hmm.
You've already answered that, which was a very good lesson, I think,
Yeah.
for anyone who will listen to this, watch this video, to actually reach out to the first network of people that you have around you that you already know.
Hmm.
Um, but if you have any other tips on how to get the first clients, because I think those are the ones that people struggle the most with. And this, I did ask my audience, by the way, like what would be some questions that you want me to ask, and this was one of them: how to get the first client ever. And the second part of the question, obviously, which now applies more, is like, how do you now get your new leads or clients? Like, what is your process for that?
Yeah, no, this is probably the question I get the most. So I'm not surprised that that's what people really wanted to hear. I'd say definitely, yeah, in the beginning, reaching out to your network, friends and family. Yeah, for me, I kind of created a hit list. So those were people that I've worked with in the past, or people that I knew were just connected to other people who might know other people. So like some people were, yeah, like an agency I freelanced for before, people I connected with on LinkedIn, maybe, who were kind of in the same world. So yeah, that was just generally just sending a cold email being like, hey, my name is Jasmine. This is what I do. If you're interested, let's set up a call. Just very, very simple, very to the point. Um, and then yeah, of course, telling my friends and family, that was really helpful, I think, especially when I officially launched. I think that was really humbling, and I think most people, like, hopefully that's the case for most people, where if you make an announcement like that, a lot of times people are trying to help you. So especially in those early days, I got a lot of requests from people who I didn't even really know that well, or people that I kind of lost touch with, like friends from university, or from past jobs, who reached out and said, oh, I have a cousin maybe who's interested, or I have a friend who's interested. Of course, not all of those people were, amazing clients,
Mm.
but it's definitely a great way to get started, and
Gets
just
you
to
started, yeah.
and
And
figure
it
it out.
also keeps you motivated in the beginning, because otherwise, like, I think it's easy to lose that motivation if
Yeah.
you just have, crickets, just basically silence.
Yeah, and that would be also another tip that I think people don't do enough, is following up. Like a
Yeah,
lot of times people send that one message and they're like, oh, I didn't hear back. Okay, I'm gonna quit now. And I always tell people follow up at like a minimum of like 3 or 4 times. And that's even something I learned from researching about sales. Like that's what salespeople do.
exactly.
They don't just send a message and run away. They send at least 4 follow-up emails,
Yeah.
until you're almost annoying.
Yeah.
You kind of have to get to that point and be comfortable with that, to just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I think
A
you
lot of
just need to make that a part of your process every single time. And like there's no shame in doing that. You
I
have to do
know.
it. Like that's how you gain more business. That's how you sell.
Yeah, and the amount of people that after maybe the second or third follow-up were like, oh, I'm so sorry, yes, we're ready to go. And if I'd let that go, then I would have just been another email in their inbox.
Yeah.
So yeah, those would be my tips, I'd say, for especially starting out. And then yeah, the networking thing, joining online communities, joining like virtual kind of networking event type things, and just sort of pitching yourself. Even if it doesn't get you clients, I think it's helpful in that it helps you helps you practice your pitch,
Yeah.
basically. Like when you
Yeah,
do actually
true.
eventually get on the phone with somebody, then you can be like, yeah, this is what I do, this is what I offer. And yeah, a lot of times I would use those events as like testing to see if like, do people even understand what I do?
Sure.
Especially like content marketing in in certain circles, people understand what that is. In other circles, I get like blank stares.
True.
So that has helped me kind of figure out, like, some people just be like, oh, I offer writing services. And then for other maybe more technical circles, I'll be like, oh, I do content marketing. And it's really kind of learning how to tailor my pitch to different audiences, I think was really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd say now my business is for like mostly referral. It's about 70% referral, 30% social media. So the referrals are obviously just people that I've either worked with in the past or friends with people I've worked with in the past, or connected in some way. And then social media, I'm pretty active on Instagram and LinkedIn. And yeah, I've just sort of optimized those channels where people, are searching for a freelance writer. If they're searching for a content writer, then my profile pops up and they, can check out my website and can see what I do.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, that brings me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is,
Yeah.
and this one, I realized that you have a blog post on this, actually, creating thought leadership content to
Hmm.
build your personal brand.
Yeah.
And so what you've just said is kind of like, justifying that point where that's how you build the personal brand, and that's how people come to you, like those inbound leads come to you.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, here I want to ask you, like, how did you start building your personal brand?
Hmm.
And again, do you have any tips for someone who wants to be a freelancer, who wants to have their own consulting business, and how should they go about in terms of building their portfolio for the earlier days, and then growing that into a personal brand?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I also have a blog post too about personal branding as well. So that's like a good place to start. But usually I tell, like, I guess for myself, I kind of just sat down and thought about, okay, what do I want to talk about? So for me, like, I knew I really wanted to sort of talk about this journey I was on and talk about the entrepreneurial things I was learning. Because especially since I hadn't going into it, I didn't really know a lot of people who like looked like me or I could relate to. I found there was a lot of like tech bros who were like, I'm a 6-figure freelancer. And I was like, okay, I
Oh,
can't
I know
connect
what
with
you
you.
mean.
Yeah. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
you're
well,
looking for someone relatable, and like
yeah.
someone who has a relatable story to yours.
Yeah, and like that's why I really gravitated towards Kat in the beginning, because she was a woman, and we have different lives. She lives in Wisconsin, I live in Toronto, but it was at least something to be like, okay, I feel like I could be like Kat. So I figured, okay, maybe people would look at me and think like, well, maybe one day I could be like Jasmine. So that's kind of where I started, where I was like, okay, I'll just share stuff about freelancing, and then also talking about content marketing. And the strategy there was a strategy there, like, especially with the freelance stuff, I really wanted to just be inspiring and motivating, because I know that's the kind of content people want to engage with. And then on the content marketing side, I also wanted to show that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I chose both of those focuses. And then I went with a blog post because obviously I'm a writer, so that
Yeah.
was a natural fit. I know you could do a podcast, you could start a YouTube channel like you're doing. It really depends on what medium makes the most sense
Yeah.
for what you're doing and what your, I guess, skill set is. So that's kind of how I started with it, and then I would just try to share it as much as possible. Like if I'd write a new blog post, then I would put it on all of my social media channels. Yeah, again, like going to different events, and like the idea is like you just need to kind of be visible. Like I just
Yeah.
try to be active enough that if
Top of
people,
mind.
exactly, that is really the key with thought leadership, is that now I've created so much content and have been active doing this for so long that people, like, I even see it sometimes in some of the networks I'm in, where people be like, oh, I'm looking for somebody who just knows this, and it's like, oh, you should talk to Jasmine. And like that's just the effect of being pretty reasonably consistent, I guess. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not, publishing a blog post every month and doing everything every week, but I've done enough that people kind of now connect me to what I want to be connected to,
That's
which is
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what are your biggest challenges as a freelancer?
Yeah. I mean, definitely time management can be tricky. Like, I have processes and I use like project management software. But the thing, at least for me, that can be an issue is that because you make the rules, like, it's really easy to
Yeah,
bite off more than you can chew, which is still something I dealt with in the beginning, and it's still something I deal with now, because I don't know, I'm really passionate about what I do, and sometimes I just get a little too excited and I'm like, yeah, I can help you, I can do that. And sometimes I have to slow down and be like, okay, wait, let me look at my calendar and see if I can
yeah,
actually, make that happen. So that is definitely a struggle. What else? I mean, I feel like definitely in the beginning, like, loneliness was tricky.
yeah,
Like, there was not necessarily loneliness because I lived with a roommate, and I had friends, but it was more just like I didn't really know anybody who was doing what I did. Like, I knew, my friend Shauna, who kind of hopped on that call with me.
hmm,
But it's not like I could just, hang out with her every
yeah,
day. We didn't live in the same city. So, like, fortunately, I joined a co-working space a few weeks into my business journey, and that was a total game changer, because just being around people who got it, like, I
yeah,
talked to my friends and my family about what I was doing, and they'd be like, oh, that sounds hard, or like, is that good? They wouldn't really understand what I was talking about or what I was going through. But then going into this community, I could be like, oh man, I don't know how to follow up with this email, or I don't know what to charge for this package. And you'd have people who would be like, oh yeah, I totally understand, or like, here's a resource that I use. So just kind of learning and connecting with people in a natural way was super helpful. What other challenges? I mean, definitely the ups and downs of income, like, that is,
yeah,
I think, something that people sometimes shy away from, but it is, sometimes it is a bit of a feast or famine. Like, now I fortunately have a pretty uh I guess, consistent client pipeline.
hmm,
So I'm not too worried about where my next client is coming from or where my next project is going to be.
that's
But
great.
definitely in the beginning, like they always say, you should definitely save up like 3 months of worth of expenses
Yeah,
before you start a business. And I think that is really key. Like, I was fortunate that I had a bit of a softer landing and that I had a
mhm,
project right away. And that's like quite a few people do that, or they'll end up
yeah,
freelancing for the company they're working with before. Like, that's totally
yeah. That's
fine. Like,
very common, actually.
yeah, and it's not like cheating or anything. Like, it's the most common thing in the
Yeah,
world. But if you don't have anything lined up right away, like, definitely having just savings as a buffer, like, just knowing I had that
yeah,
a bank account to be like, I could dip into this if I need to. Because yeah, it could be quite a roller coaster at the beginning.
yeah.
But
I know.
but it definitely gets easier for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I mean, I had the similar challenges too. I would say time management for sure, especially in the very early days when you're first starting this out. It it is very difficult to say no, and I
Hmm.
think learning to say no is a skill,
Hmm.
and it came to me pretty later in my career as well.
Yeah.
And also just like that feeling of being kind of not lonely, but I don't know, not having those people that you can just take off some steam with or like motivate each other with, and
Yeah.
that could get difficult. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I actually signed up for a co-working space, and I really love co-working spaces. I mean, not that those can be like I can't really go to co-working spaces right now because of the pandemics, but
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I think it is going to change it quite soon, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's a thing that I think people don't really talk about that much. But yeah, like, well, I guess people are relating to it now. It's so interesting now in this
Yeah,
COVID-19 era, because yeah, what I was doing was so not the norm for 2 years, and now everybody's working the way I work.
yeah,
But yeah, like, the idea of like not having people to go to like happy hour with. I remember I really missed that right after I quit my job. Like I had a friend at my last job who, you know, if we had a stressful day, we'd be like, oh, do you want to like go grab a beer? Do you want to go get donuts or something? And you could just do that. And now when I went freelance, I was like, okay, well now I have to really reach out to people.
Yeah, you make an extra effort to do that
Yeah, it
when you're
doesn't
on
come
the,
as naturally. It's not
yeah.
built in the way it is when you're working in an office.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess now that everybody's kind of working remotely, we all understand what that
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah, I agree. So what is one thing that you love about it?
One thing, there's so many things. Definitely for me, I love being able to create every day. Like I really consider myself a very creative person. I love to write. Like that's literally all I've ever wanted to do. And sometimes I still kind of pinch myself that like I just get to write every day.
Every day.
Um, so yeah, just being able to be creative. Like, you know, if you're working in a job and you wanted to, you know, work on a blog post or work on a social media post and it's not really related to the task at hand, you can't really do that. But as a freelancer, I can do that. I can be like, you know what, I'm gonna like put that aside for a bit and like work on this little thing, or you know, I'm gonna make an Instagram reel and post that. Like I don't have to ask for permission to do anything. So yeah, I think just being able to be creative, just make my own rules. Uh, what else? I love just the unlimited potential sort of it. Like when I
Yeah.
was working in a job 9 to 5, like I was always a super hardworking, you know, stay late kind of person. And when you do that in a job, you're not always really rewarded for it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it actually can be not good because people just see you as that person who will take on all the extra stuff. So I never loved that. I was like, well, I love my job, but I don't want to like be here all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas now owning my own business, if I do work more, I see those rewards. You
Yeah.
know, if I'm more active on social, then it leads to potentially more speaking engagements or whatever else I'm looking for. If I, you know, book a lot of sales calls, that means like I maybe book more projects and then have more earning potential. And not to say that everybody does this because they want to be like a workaholic, but for me, I love that flexibility where I could be like, I'm going to go really hard for the next 2 months. And then if I want to take another month off, I can
Yeah,
do
you
that.
can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is fantastic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice being able to get what you put into something.
All right, so I wanted to wrap up with your top 3 recommendations for someone who is considering a career in a freelancing career in marketing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you already mentioned some really, really good points, and I could maybe start off by summarizing those. And if you want to add anything else or if you want to change them, let me know. But I think this would be very helpful because this was again asked from the community. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that you mentioned that was really important, I think, is to make that hit list, the target list that once you launch your business that you are going to do an outreach to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one tip that could be really, really helpful. The other one was to find a mentor, find someone that has done what you want to achieve, and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, I don't like the phrase pick their brain, but to maybe do an informational interview
Yeah.
to learn about their journey, learn about their mistakes or learnings, and try to apply as much as you can to your own path.
Yeah.
And the other one, and I mean, this is almost becoming a cliche these days, but like to really niche down and to really know the specific path that you are going to become an expert in, and to present yourself as the expert in that area. So
Yeah.
I guess like, I mean, we already talked about those 3, but if there's anything else that you want to add to the recommendations for someone who wants to start a career as a freelancer.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely the biggest points I think I could make. I'd say maybe what I'd add to that is like doing some research, like seeing who else maybe is out there who's offering maybe similar services to what
Yeah.
you want to offer, and just sort of see, you know, what you think they're doing well and how you can sort of differentiate.
Yeah.
Like in the marketing world, you know, that's just market research, you know, or like a competitive analysis.
Yeah. And it is
Um,
very competitive, I think.
it can
Especially
be.
nowadays. I mean, I mean, 2 years ago, maybe not so much, but I feel right now the market is becoming very competitive. If you don't have a niche, I think it could be difficult.
Yeah, I will like yeah, it's hard because I don't want to discourage, because to me, like one thing that was really encouraging for me when I was starting out that my mentor told me is like really think about how many clients you actually need to build a viable
Yeah.
business. Like most of the time it's like maybe max 5, you know, if you're like a one man, one woman, one person
Yeah.
show. And that was because at first I thought that too. I was like, okay, but there's so many writers, there's got to be other people who are doing this. And that really helped me. They just encouraged me because I was like, okay, well, I can get 4 clients, you know,
Yeah.
I can do that. And I really do think that everybody in the world, or anybody who wants to do this, can get the clients that they need to be successful. Like you don't need everything.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
all of the business. And it can be scary when you hear like, oh, this person landed this client, or this person's working with this one. But that doesn't mean that there's not people out there who want to work with you specifically. Um, but yeah, I'd say definitely doing some research, kind of looking at what's out there, and really just like testing the waters. Like I think there's a perfectionism that people have, like, or even I'll talk to people who want to freelance and they're like, okay, yeah, I've been working on my website, but I haven't launched it yet, or I haven't reached out to anybody
Hmm.
yet. And like you have to be comfortable just putting yourself out there, making mistakes, and like
Yeah.
figuring things out as you go. Like definitely people might see where I'm at now and they'll think, oh wow, like that's amazing, like she's done so much. But yeah, when I was just starting out, it was just me and like a template WordPress site, and I had some packages that have now gone through so many changes and shifts, like it's hard to count. So really just you have to try, you have to put
Yeah.
yourself out there, just be like, this is what I offer, is anybody interested? And you will get feedback that will make things better. Like I think, like as a marketer, that's something I learned pretty early, which is just that you need to talk to your customers, you need to
Yeah.
talk to your audience, you need to ask them what they want. You can't just go in.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't assume. Just ask and kind of try to validate your idea,
Yeah,
and then go all in.
yeah. So that's what I would suggest people do. Just, you know, say, this is what I'm trying to do. What feedback do you have for me? Even especially in those early projects, try to get as much feedback as possible. And yeah, learn as you go, and don't be afraid
Yeah.
to make some mistakes, because you
Mistakes. Yeah.
probably
Exactly. That's how you learn. I think that's the best way to learn. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I mean, definitely if people want to like learn more about me and what I do, then they
Oh
can.
yeah, I will definitely have all of the relevant links in the description bar below, so that
Yeah,
if they want to reach out to you, if they want to follow you on social media, everything will be down in the description box. And also
awesome.
I will probably create a blog post on using this video as well. So if I do,
Great.
then all the links will be there as well.
Perfect.
But thank you so much for your time. I think that was really, really helpful.
Yay. No, this is so much fun. I'm happy I could talk till the cows come home about this. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this and for inviting me to speak.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. All right. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.